What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Vert here on theverticaljump.org. And something funny happened recently. I was on Instagram and I saw somebody say that, summertime is a tough time because there's not much going on in sports. And I was taken aback because summertime is almost the best time for sports. I understand basketball's over and football's in the fall, but this summer especially is good because there's 7 international soccer tournaments going on. And now, before you say, "Oh, Ian, I don't watch soccer and I don't watch baseball," I just give it a chance. I'm a guy that soccer's always been interesting to me, but I haven't been as into it as I have been in recent years. And once you start getting into soccer and you pick teams and you pick players and you just go for it, soccer slowly starts to become your favorite sport, and you start to realize why it's the most popular sport worldwide. With all that being the preface to this, I want to just dive right into what I wanted to talk about today. And that is specifically a comparison that I haven't seen drawn too much in the media or in general. A lot of people don't pinpoint this, and I seem to have kind of made a connection. Neymar Jr., he is a soccer player, plays for Paris Saint-Germain, also known as PSG, with Mbappe, the best 19-year-old soccer player in the world. But Neymar, he used to play for FC Barcelona. And while he played there, he played under the best soccer player in the world. His name is Messi. We all know Messi. Messi, at the peak of his powers, was responsible for over 90 goals in a season back in 2012. And Messi has just been really the central figure in a debate of who's the best soccer player ever. And obviously we all know this debate, Ronaldo versus Messi. But this is about Neymar Jr., so let's get back to that. So Neymar had 3 really good years under Messi. Those years being 2014 to 15, 2015 to 16, 2016 to 17. In 2014 to 15, he played in 33 matches, scored 22 goals, 7 assists. In 2015 to 16, he played in 34 league matches, had 24 goals, 12 assists. In 2016 to 17, he had 30 matches, 13 goals, 11 assists. See, Neymar Jr., when he played under Messi, was seen as the next up. He was this young guy with a whole bunch of flair, had a propensity to score goals. He could set his teammates up when he wanted to. And one-on-one, he was one of the most crafty goal scorers in the world. At such a young age, Neymar was billed as next up, right? And then you look at what happened since he's left Messi. He left Messi because he said he wanted to forge his own path. And so PSG breaks a transfer record to buy him from Barcelona. He forges his own path, yes. He goes to PSG and then he's often injured. PSG struggles in the Champions League. They get knocked out year after year. And what do we hear now? Neymar is willing to take a pay cut to return to Barcelona to play with Messi again. Now, you might be asking, okay, Ian, what's the point of that? Well, I want to draw a quick comparison for you guys. Neymar Jr. is the Kyrie Irving of the soccer world. Kyrie, drafted to the Cleveland Cavaliers, up and coming, known to have potential, has the ability to become the best point guard in the NBA if he really wanted to. The same way Neymar had that ability to take the throne from Messi when Messi was ready to relinquish it. Kyrie then plays under LeBron James. Under LeBron James, Kyrie has some of the best statistical years of his career in terms of efficiency, in terms of winning, and his longest playoff runs were with LeBron. And then halfway into that tenure, Kyrie says, I want to forge my own path. I want to have my own team. As does any young superstar, they want to be the key cog in a championship team. Messi was the key cog for Barcelona, and Neymar was kind of the secondary figure. LeBron was a key cog for Cleveland. Kyrie was that secondary figure. Kyrie wanted to get out of that shadow. He went to Boston. What happened at Boston? Kyrie showed flashes of what he could be in Boston. That when he first got there, they went on 16-game win streaks. Everything was good. Chemistry was good. You see, Neymar and Kyrie are synonymous because they're both 27 years old. Their birthdays are a month apart. They wanted to forge their own path. They wanted to blaze their own trail. But they're both emotionally aloof. They're out of touch with reality. Kyrie got to Boston, and his knee injury started to flare up again. When Kyrie went to Boston, we questioned, does Kyrie have the ability to be in top form all the time? Before LeBron came, he was often injured and the Cavs wouldn't win. What happened when he got to Boston? Kyrie was often injured. And this year, the Boston Celtics had one of the most disappointing years in franchise history. When Neymar got to PSG, it was, can Neymar bear the load of being the central figure in PSG's attack? Can he do that game in and game out? And he proved that he couldn't. He couldn't physically stay in top form because he was often hurt. And then when it came to the Champions League, he often wasn't available to even play for them in the Champions League because he was hurt. And then PSG started to win league games without him. They had this kid named Mbappe, and Neymar had nowhere to go. So what does Neymar do? I want to go back to Barcelona. I'll take a pay cut to go back to Barcelona. I'll have to take a pay cut, especially if we get Griezmann. What did Kyrie do when things started going wrong in Boston? Hey, LeBron, I'm sorry. I didn't know how hard it was to lead a championship team. These young guys are stressing me out. I don't know what to do. And what will Kyrie Irving have to do this summer if he wants to play with LeBron again? He'll have to take a pay cut. The similarities between Kyrie and Neymar are so evident. Again, both of them emotionally aloof, not great leaders, often injured, showed flashes to be the best at what they do. But they mortgaged that by wanting to blaze their own trail too soon. It's okay to say, I'm not ready yet. When we're young, we think we're ready. You know, we're there saying, I know everything. I have all the knowledge I need. I can go be the best at what I do right away. Kyrie Irving and Neymar Jr. were a product of that. They're a product of being millennials. They wanted everything right away and failed to realize that better things are coming if only they were patient. Think about last season with the Cleveland Cavaliers. If LeBron had Kyrie in that situation, how much better that could have been. And, you know, things could be completely different by now. It could have been LeBron signs a longer contract in Cleveland because he knows Kyrie's going to be there. The Cavs are then able to have that leverage in order to move chess pieces around, and they're willing to forego some of these draft picks to get them more help. And we could be talking about Cleveland having 2 or 3 championships now. Think about what could have happened if Neymar Jr. stayed with Messi, how they could have dominated European competition. But it didn't work out that way. They wanted to blaze their own trail, and more power to them to control their career, but I think both of them are regretting it now. Kyrie Irving has been linked to the Brooklyn Nets, saying that, you know, I want to go play it back home in Brooklyn, and everybody's felt that it's a foregone conclusion. But I think, again, the best situation for Kyrie would be go back to the Lakers. We already did Kyrie being the central leader on a young team, and it didn't work in Boston. Why would he do the same thing in Brooklyn? Go back to the Lakers, play under LeBron again, and realize that sometimes it's okay to be the second best player on a championship team. That doesn't take anything away from who you are as a player. And in fact, Kyrie Irving thrives as that guy that can kind of coast for most of the game and then close it. That's who Kyrie is. He's a closer. And I feel that Neymar is finally reaching that point at 27 years old where he realized, hey, I had a really good thing going in Barcelona. I got to try to get that back, because he's tired of falling short in the Champions League. He's tired of being hurt because he has to do everything. Sometimes it's okay to say, I'll play second fiddle if that means winning. Their career similarities are unprecedented. And if you even watch Neymar Jr. play and then watch Kyrie Irving play, and if you transferred Kyrie's skills to soccer, he'd play exactly like Neymar. And if you transferred Neymar's skills to basketball, he'd play exactly like Kyrie. That's why I think it's funny that not many people have drawn this comparison. Kyrie and Neymar are different people, but synonymous in their actions. They left their teams the same summer. They're both 27 years old. And then after having their own teams for 3 years, they're starting to realize, hey, I had a good thing going. So we'll see what happens for both of them this summer, whether Neymar Jr. is going to end up back at FC Barcelona. And then we're also going to see where Kyrie Irving ends up. Again, free agency starts Sunday of this upcoming week, so it should bode some excitement. And the transfer window is wide open, so that should bode some excitement as well. I want to talk about discrepancies in discrimination for women in professional sports. And I want to preface this by saying that discrimination for women in the professional sport theater has been there. It's always been seen as like a guy's club that, oh, you probably don't know enough to get into, or, oh, you're not as good. And that's not what I'm saying here. I'm not saying that didn't exist, because it very much did. What I want to key in on in this whole conversation that we're going to have is the reality that sports are a business. They are there to generate revenue for the team owners, for the company owners, for the merchandising, for the endorsements. That's what sports are. They're a medium to generate revenue and make money. Now, a lot of women athletes recently have been in the news saying that they're not paid as much as the men, and they're not funded as much as the men, which to some degree is true. The funding hasn't been there at times. But the problems that I have here are a lot of their discrimination claims aren't discrimination claims. It's the reality of the situation of women's sport within America and within the world. For instance, the FIFA Women's World Cup. The prize pool for the winner of this World Cup and all the other nations involved is around $30 million. Last summer, the Men's World Cup, the prize pool was around $400 million. And immediately off the bat, if you just looked at those numbers, you could claim, they're giving them less money because they're women. And I want to say that's not the case at all. Because again, sports are a business. So if you look at the numbers, a lot of the women's professional sports leagues are operating in the red. For instance, the WNBA. That's been a recent one that's been in the news a lot, talking about WNBA players complaining about their mode of travel not being as nice. Private charters are in the NBA, while the WNBA often doesn't fly private charters. They're saying that, why do we have to travel by bus to certain areas or certain things like that, that the travel's not as well, the pay is not as well, the revenue sharing is not as well. And then if you just took that at face value, you'd say, well, that's a just claim, they should be able to have private charters, until you look at the actual numbers. The WNBA has been operating in the red every single year of its existence. The league is roughly 22, 23 years old at this point, and if you look at the NBA's history, the NBA didn't start making money until the 1980s. That's around 40 to 50 years since the NBA's inception. WNBA players are expected to be treated like NBA players when their league isn't garnering nearly as much revenue as the NBA. And that's not from failure to support, because the NBA's recent TV deal back in 2016 that caused the NBA cap to spike, they said in that TV deal that you get all these NBA games, ESPN or ESPN affiliates and things like that, but you also have to take all the WNBA games. They made sure that the WNBA was taken care of. The NBA has been funneling money to the WNBA for years. That's how the league's able to stay afloat. Now, WNBA players are asking for a larger share of the revenue when there isn't revenue to begin with. And claiming discrimination is taking away from the fact that there isn't revenue to begin with. Think about it in private business enterprise. You're a business owner, you own a publishing company. And you're a new publishing company, you don't have many employees, you don't have many, sub-markets or subdivisions within that business. It's really you and 4 other employees. You pay your employees what you can, but since the business isn't making much money, you can't pay your employees millions of dollars. because you're technically still operating in the red. You're a new business. That's the WNBA. The WNBA is a relatively new business. They haven't had much of a compelling narrative. They haven't had much of a compelling story yet, because those types of things take years and years to evolve and develop. Think about the NBA's linear history. The 2010s have been dominated by LeBron. The 2000s had been Shaq, Tim Duncan, Kobe. The 90s was Jordan. The 80s was Magic and Bird. And before that, the 70s was known as the era of parity. It's also known as the era where the NBA almost went belly up. The NBA wasn't making money until the 1980s. Players weren't getting these lucrative contracts until the 1980s and up, because the league wasn't making money yet. Once the league started making money, that's when players then had the leverage to say, hey, we want supermaxes. Hey, we want more lucrative deals. And that's just part of the reality of sports. So to claim discrimination is doing a disservice to women's sports, if you ask me. Instead, we shouldn't be claiming discrimination. We should be asking questions such as, in what ways can we help the WNBA garner more revenue and get more fans in the stands? And when you get more fans in the stands, that means the league makes more money. And this is coming from a guy that watches WNBA games. I watch a good amount of WNBA games. Every time it's on, I try to catch it. I have WNBA League Pass, so I get all out-of-market games. I've been to a couple. I love the WNBA, mainly because I love basketball, and I'm a basketball fanatic. But the reality is, the way leagues make money is off the casual fan, the casual viewer. And you need to start inciting casual fans to be like, hey, I want to catch a WNBA game just because it's on. That's how you make money. You get those fans to the stands. And how do you get those fans? You have compelling narratives. You have compelling players. You market your players better. So I wouldn't say it's discrimination in pay. It's just the WNBA hasn't made a lot of money because in the grand scheme of society, it's relatively new. And this isn't me canceling out that discrimination ever existed, because if discrimination didn't exist, the WNBA would have been around for as long as the NBA. But they haven't. The NBA is doing their best to support it, and we're starting to take steps in the right direction. The NBA has again said, hey, you get all our games, but you also have to take WNBA games. The NBA has partnered with the WNBA in having NBA players go to games and publicize those games on their social media. They have commercials talking about why they support the WNBA, because they know that if fans of these players see that their favorite player watches the WNBA, they're more likely themselves to watch the WNBA. And so it's not discrimination. It comes down to revenue and revenue sharing. We make the WNBA more money by watching their games. So it comes down to the very people that are paying attention to the lawsuit. You want these WNBA athletes to make more money? Watch their games. Go to a couple of their games. Buy their jerseys. Support the league. Don't just say, oh, they're being discriminated against and leave it there. Do your part. Tune into women's soccer games. Tune into women's basketball games. And I know it can be done, because if you look at women's college basketball, teams like UConn, South Carolina, Notre Dame, all have fans in the stands. Baylor. They all have fans in the stands because people want to watch women's sports. It's not that they don't want to watch women's sports. So tune in, pay attention, and care. That's how you fight against these discrepancies in payment in professional leagues. Professional leagues are businesses. Leagues are able to pay their athletes more when the league makes more money. That's how the athletes are able to get leverage on the league, because they're their cash cow. So expect to see more stuff in the news about the Team USA lawsuit against FIFA, and because that's headed to mediation. And we should definitely see what happens there in terms of the prize pool money that goes in FIFA. The women are claiming that they can't separate men's prize pool from women's prize pool. But what we aren't also paying attention to is the fact that the men's money isn't guaranteed, because the men get more sponsorships. And they realize the women don't get as many sponsorships, and so they have more guaranteed money than the men's, which is an interesting concept. But nonetheless, I do feel that, sometimes women athletes can be underrepresented in the media, But that's just because they're not a familiar face, so we have to make their faces familiar. And you want to know how you do that? You support your women's athletes by going to their games and caring. So it comes back to the fans again. We care, the league makes more money. FIFA makes more money, they have to give the women's teams more money. It's a real interesting concept. Gender dynamics in sports has always been kind of taboo, and I hope I did this justice, because I do understand where the women are coming from in terms of being discriminated against initially, and we have to really pour in support in our women's sports because they're the best at what they do. They're some of the top 1% athletes in the world. They deserve equal support, but also we have to educate the public that this isn't just purely discrimination. It's the fact that their leagues aren't making as much money. You get paid more when the league makes more. The next thing I want to talk about, if we're going to continue on this whole discrimination type of trend, is the NBA getting rid of the use of the word owner, and they're switching it to governor. And I have a few thoughts about this. Me being the black male that I am, when I see the word owner used in professional sports, it's not taboo to me. It's not, oh, that's racially driven, because when you purchase an NBA team for whatever, $3 billion, you are now the owner of that team. Again, let's compare it to private business and private enterprise. If I go and buy a Chick-fil-A and I say, this is now a privately owned Chick-fil-A, it's a franchisee, I own that Chick-fil-A. I don't own the people that work there. They're my coworkers, they're my employees, and they're paid a salary for the work that they do. It goes the same way in professional sports. Steve Ballmer bought the Clippers. He's the owner of the Clippers. He owns the Clippers logo. His name's going to be in Staples Center where they play. He owns the jerseys, but he does not own the players. That's not the case here. Those players are his employees. They're his co-workers. And those players are paid really well for what they do. Now, Draymond Green has been said that he doesn't like the use of the word owner, and he's a player. He's a black player within the NBA, if you guys don't know. And I'm saying that word owner can be empowering, because think about how the black community felt when we saw Michael Jordan become the owner of the Charlotte Hornets. A black owner in sports. A black guy garnered enough wealth to purchase an NBA team. And that's so powerful. So I feel that we're shooting ourselves in the foot by saying that this word owner has racially driven connotations to it, because we're limiting our outreach. We're limiting what we can achieve as black men and women within society. Because now, instead of Michael Jordan being known as a black owner in professional sports, he's known as a black governor of an NBA franchise, and that carries less weight. And I feel it's almost like the boy that cried wolf. In our society, it's seen as you're a true intellectual if you can scream discrimination at everything and find discrimination in everything. And that's not the case. That's never been the case. Because if you find discrimination in everything, and if you find everything in this world racist, that takes away the power of when something truly is racist. The prison system. Racist, innately racist, systematically racist. The word owner in the NBA, not so much. At the end of the day, an owner is just somebody that purchases something. I purchased this notebook that I use to write these shows on. I'm the owner of that notebook. I purchase a car, brand new BMW. I am the owner of that BMW. I purchase the LA Clippers. I am the owner of the LA Clippers, not the owner of the employees. In private business, I purchase a Chick-fil-A. I'm the owner of that Chick-fil-A establishment, not the owner of the employees. The employees are paid. They work alongside you. They're co-workers. It doesn't have much racial connotation in my book. I think we're kind of overreaching, and it's the year 2019 where we seemingly have to find something to be upset at. And so I think, in fact, keeping the word owner can be so much more powerful than ever getting rid of it. Because as we start to see more black people garner more wealth and obviously have interest in the professional sport field, we're going to see a lot more black owners. And I think that's powerful. One league that has to get better in is the NFL. There's not many minority owners, if any. I'm speaking off the top of my head because I can't think of many now. And the day that I see a majority owner in the NFL is the day that I'm going to say, wow, like we are doing something. We're stepping forward to say that there is a black owner in the NFL. So the NBA doing away with the word owner doesn't really sit well to me. I think that it's taking away from the power that it could hold to say, oh, wow, look at this percentage of black owners in the NBA. I think the word has power, but power in a good sense over a racially negative connotation. The NBA awards were this week, and though they had amazing moments, they had compelling moments, I have to say the NBA awards suck. Please, I want the NBA to get rid of them. And there's a few reasons why I think that is. The first one being, it's too late. It's way too late. The NBA regular season ended 2 months ago. That we went through the playoffs. And you're telling me the playoffs shouldn't affect voting to a degree? If you're going to have the NBA awards after the NBA finals, you have to allow the playoffs to affect voting to a degree. It has to be that way. And two, it takes away from great moments with fans. Think about when Derrick Rose raised his MVP in Chicago. The fans went crazy. Think about when Kevin Durant won MVP for the Oklahoma City Thunder and had that amazing speech about his mom, then raised the trophy in front of that Oklahoma crowd. The fans that have cheered him on his MVP season all along the way. Amazing moment. And Giannis Antetokounmpo was awarded NBA MVP. And he had an amazing speech where he thanked each one of his family members. And he was moved to tears during this speech when talking about his dad. It was an amazing moment, but it should have happened two months ago. It should have happened with the fans that cheered him on along the way. Because as much as his family supported him, each one of the Milwaukee Bucks fans loves Giannis like he's one of their own. Because that's how fandom is in America. That's just how it goes. You obsess over these players because you watch these players night in, night out. You support them night in, night out. And I feel that the NBA shouldn't take away from that moment with the fans because they want to hang out in their own private awards club where they invite celebrities and invite players' families, but kind of push away all the fans and all the average people that supported these above average human beings. So the NBA award show sucks. It sucks. It's way too late. It kind of disenfranchises all the fans that supported these players all along their journey. And then the third reason why it sucks, the jokes aren't funny. Everybody was loving Shaq at the NBA award show, and I was cringing the entire time. As much as I love Shaq on TNT, his ability to be a host and be funny just was kind of wayward. There were a lot of awkward moments. Another awkward moment was when John Wall was reading the teleprompter and it seemed that he was high on something. I'm not exactly sure what. But it's stuff like that. It's awkward. It's not comfortable. It doesn't flow. It's not natural because the NBA was never a league that is about itself and excludes the fans. It's always been a league that's included the fans, included the cities, included the players' families, all under one big umbrella. And the award ceremony, again, kind of excludes everybody that made the NBA who it is today. So do away with it. Go back to the old model where the awards were given out in the first or early second round of the playoffs. Think about how powerful that moment would have been with Giannis Antetokounmpo winning MVP if it was shared not only with his family, not only with those involved in the NBA awards, but with the thousands of Milwaukee Bucks fans that have supported him since he was 18, 19 years old, playing on their favorite team. That moment would have so much more power. So that's why I think the NBA awards suck. That's a big reason why I think they suck. And I've been seeing a lot recently on Twitter that people really believe James Harden should have won MVP, and I just want to dispel this notion really quick, because James Harden shouldn't have won MVP. Giannis Antetokounmpo averaged 27 points per game, 12.5 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.5 blocks, while winning 60 games for the Milwaukee Bucks. James Harden averaged 36 points per game, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, and the Rockets won less games than they won last year. I get it. James Harden had a great scoring 2 months when Chris Paul was out and he had to do everything. But Giannis was a better two-way player this past season. He had more impact for his team, as well as his team just won more games. We forget that the NBA voters will always vote the storyline over anything else. And Giannis had the better story. The guy that came up from nothing, used to run to the team's practice facility because he didn't have enough money for a car. That guy won MVP. Remember, they always vote story. So Giannis did deserve MVP. James Harden had a great year. He had an all-NBA year. And sometimes it's all right to finish second if the first place finisher just was a little bit better. People don't want to admit it. And then I saw people saying that this is why only players should vote. And that's just ridiculous to me, because we see what happens when players vote for the All-Star games. We have weird situations where players are voting the eighth man on a roster because they're like, you guys just don't understand his value. No, we watch these games too. So I want to talk about Zion Williamson real quick. And I know you guys have heard enough about him. You turn on ESPN and that's all they talk about. But I want to talk about a Zion Williamson comparison that's been percolating in my mind recently. I think Zion at his worst in his career is going to be Julius Randle, because we've been floating around with the Charles Barkley comparisons, Blake Griffin, but at Zion's worst, if his career doesn't go as planned, he'll end up as Julius Randle. Julius Randle this past season had a really good year for the Pelicans. He averaged 21 points per game, 3 assists, 8 rebounds, and he was really a secondary ball handler in that Alvin Gentry offense. He was a trail big man that would get the ball at the top of the key and be able to make decisions. He'd catch the ball in the high post, on the elbow, and they'd really clear out and let him create. And I'd love to see Zion in this role, and he's going to get to play this role now that he's in New Orleans. He's going to be able to get more high elbow touches and go to his dominant left hand. He's going to be able to grab the ball out in transition and be a secondary or primary ball handler depending on who's on the floor. And he's going to be able to crash the glass, rebound, and then get to push the ball. It's just going to be exciting, and I really just wanted to touch on that real quick, because I think the Zion and Julius Randle comparison is almost synonymous, and it's one of the best NBA player comparisons I've seen in a while. So at Zion's worst, or if his career doesn't project out to be as dominant as we think he will, I think he'll be a little bit better than what Julius Randle is now. And Julius Randle is one really good basketball player. In fact, one of the most underrated players in the NBA. The last thing I want to talk about in today's podcast has been Andre Iguodala has been in the news recently. I don't know if you guys read the article, but he came on the Breakfast Club talking about the Warriors training staff, saying that not this past postseason, but the postseason before, when they played the Rockets in the conference finals, his bone bruise was actually a broken leg, and that the Warriors training staff has been known to claim an injury is one thing when it's really another. And that's what pissed Kevin Durant off. And we just saw today that Kevin Durant declined his player option. And I was joking with my friend that everybody on the Warriors training staff is about to be fired. But the fact that Andre Iguodala is coming out with this now, saying things that, the training staff is known for not diagnosing things correctly or not going through the right plan of treatment, and that's why KD's pissed. It's completely baffling to me, because I thought with the NBA there's a standard of care, because in medicine, period, there's a standard of care. To say something's a bone bruise when it's a broken leg is ridiculous, and to say something's a calf when it's an Achilles is ridiculous, but Andre Iguodala is basically implying that this has been going on for a while with the Warriors training staff. So it's going to be interesting to see how that fares in KD's offseason decision that should be coming up, because, again, free agency starts Sunday. And that's just baffling to me. That's wild. And so Andre Iguodala has been in a lot of headlines recently, and as it should be. If you've made it to this point in the podcast, you've made it to the end. We had a full show. We went longer than usual, but that's all right. I like talking to you guys, and I love creating content for you guys. If you found anything I said here interesting, subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're available on Spotify, Apple, Spreaker, the website, theverticaljump.org. You can also follow me on social media. My Twitter is at IanK. That's IANKAY. My Instagram is IAN_KAYJAY. That's where you kind of get a little bit more of me and see who I am as a person, because, I'm a personable guy. Make sure that you share this with your friends, you share this with your loved ones, you share this with people that love sports. And remember, may the rest of your day be the best of your day. Thank you for listening.